I've got a story for you today that honestly feels like it was ripped straight out of a Cold War spy novel. But it's not fiction. It's the real and absolutely mind-blowing origin story behind one of the biggest, most powerful companies on Earth. So let's just dive right in with this quote. I mean, imagine that's your job description. Your whole purpose professionally is to use hard data to prove that a global superpower is doomed to fail. This wasn't some hypothetical exercise. This was a real assignment for a very brilliant man in the heart of the Soviet Union. So who was this guy? Who was the man whose job it was to perform this massive, ideologically charged calculation? Okay, so our story kicks off in Moscow back in the 1970s. We're inside the Soviet State Planning Committee, which was basically the engine room of the entire Soviet economy. And our main character is Mikhail Brin, a seriously gifted mathematician whose talents were being used directly by the state. Now, you gotta understand, Gosplan wasn't just some boring government office. No way. This was the central nervous system for the whole Soviet project. It decided everything, from how many tractors a factory in Siberia would build to what the price of a loaf of bread would be in Kyiv. So, Mikhail's work, it was right at the very core of this whole system. And here's the kicker. Mikhail wasn't just crunching random numbers. He was basically doing a form of mathematical propaganda. He had a very, very specific goal: produce data that would officially prove that the communist system was just plain better than the capitalist West. And you know what? For a while, he was all in. He later said that seeing his numbers, these figures that proved Soviet success, printed in the official state newspapers, it actually gave him a real sense of pride. In his mind, he was calculating the greatness of his own country. But, and this is where the story takes a sharp turn, beneath all that pride, a different feeling was starting to grow. See, despite being valuable to the state, Mikhail, who was Jewish, kept hitting a wall. His career was being blocked by the state's institutional anti-Semitism. His own dream of being an astronomer was crushed, and he started to see a very limited, very bleak future for his own young son. All of this led him to make a decision that nobody, especially not the Soviet government, could have ever seen coming. I mean, talk about a complete 180. In the 70s, he's this loyal Soviet mathematician, but after seeing the system's ugly side, he makes this incredibly risky choice to get out. By May 1979, the very man whose job it was to calculate America's downfall packs up his family and moves there. And then, less than 20 years later, that little boy he brought with him helps build a true icon of American innovation. So who was that 6-year-old boy who arrived in America from deep inside the Soviet Union? Well, this is the part of the story that becomes a global phenomenon. Yep, that's right. The son of the man whose job was to prove the Soviet system would win, he grows up to create a foundational pillar of the 21st century American economy. The irony is just, it's perfect. It's almost too perfect to be real. You really just can't make this stuff up. It's like history itself wrote the perfect punchline. A brilliant mathematician is told to prove America will fail, but his greatest legacy turns out to be the son he gave to America, a son who would go on to completely reshape it. And when you put them side by side like this, the father and the son, wow, the contrast is just staggering. Under the Soviet system, Mikhail's amazing talent for math was used to serve this rigid, top-down ideology. But in the American system, his son Sergei used that same incredible, inherited skill to build something totally new, open, and world-changing. Okay, so here's the crucial point. This whole story is way more than just a fun fact you'd share at a party. It tells us something really profound about how innovation, freedom, and human potential are all tangled up together. So let's really break this down. What are the big takeaways? What can we learn from this incredible family journey that crossed 2 continents and really 2 completely opposite worlds? For me, it really boils down to these 3 massive ideas. First, you have this clash between a system and raw talent. The Soviet system tried to put Mikhail's talent in a box. The American system let his son's talent run wild. Second, there's the incredible historical irony of it all. The family's very personal choice to just find a better life ended up being this huge vote against an entire political system. And finally, it's just a stunning, undeniable example of the power of immigration. This story might just be the ultimate proof of what we call a nation's soft power. It shows that the ability to be a magnet for the world's best and brightest people, to just give them a platform and the freedom to build their dreams, well, that's one of the most powerful resources any country can ever have.
And that's the big question I want to leave you with. What kind of amazing potential gets unleashed when raw talent finally finds true freedom? It's a question that the incredible journey of the Brin family answers in the most dramatic, world-changing way imaginable.